happy to be, I'm yelling, which I don't need to do because there's a mic here. I'm really happy to be here. This place makes me joyful. And you brought the good light today, which I appreciate. And we're next to the farmer's market. I don't live here anymore, as we just heard. So I thought I'd start with a poem that I wrote before I realized that I was going to move, but I feel like sometimes writing is a slightly prophetic act, like you write yourself into reality. So be careful about what you write. Against nostalgia. I suppose you have food there, too. But here, it is summer, and we have asparagus, avocado, and stone fruit. I am so happy. The yard trees of my youth yield more fruit than we can handle. I was going to bake chicken with cherries and apricot, but already it is too hot. I can't turn on the oven. Sometimes I bite straight into plums. Other times I slice them to serve them on a platter. Sometimes I want to move away, so I must remember everything I used to love. Stone fruit and asparagus, drafts of eucalyptus carried through the window on the wind. So I had an event on Thursday night at the Oakland Museum of California, and one of the artifacts in the Oakland Museum of California, they have all these drawers where you can get nests and flowers and things from the flora and fauna of California. And in one of these drawers, I came across the artifact that shows up in this poem. Natural history. The rufous hummingbird builds her nest of moss and spider webs and lichen. I held one once, smaller than my palm, but sturdy. I would have told Mrs. Jeffers from Court Street if in those days of constant flights between California and Virginia, I'd wandered into that Oakland museum. Any chance I could, I'd leave my rented house in Lynchburg. I hated the feeling of stuckness that old city's humidity implied. You need to stop running away so much, Mrs. Jeffers would say, when my visits were over and I leaned down to hug her. Why her words come to me, the woman dead for the better part of this new century, while I think of that nest of web and lichen, I cannot rightly say. She had once known my mother's parents, the whole lot of them, even then, in their 20s, must already have been as old as God. They were black. The kind name for them in those days would have been Negroes. And the daily elections called for between their safety and their sanity must have torn even the strongest of them down. Mr. Jeffers had been a laborer, the sort I regret I don't remember. He sat on their front porch all day near his oxygen tank, waving occasionally to passing Buicks and Fords, praising the black walnut that shaded their yard. She would leave the porch sometimes to prepare their meals. I still have her yeast roll recipe, the best I've ever tried. Mostly, though, the same Virginian breeze that encouraged Thomas Jefferson's tomatoes passed warmly through their porch eaves while we listened to the swing chain and no one talked or moved too much at all. Little had changed in that house since 1952. I guess it's no surprise they come to mind when I think of that cup of spider webs and moss made softer by the feathers of some long-gone bird. She used to say, I like it, right here, where I am, in this little house here, with him. I thought her small-minded. In the winter, I didn't visit very often. Their house was closed up and overheated. Everything smelled of chemical mothballs. She had plastic wrappers on the sofas and chairs. Everyone must have once held someone as old and small and precious as this. So one of the things for me about writing with a kind of consciousness of this precarious condition that we have environmentally in this world means that I also can never fully let go of this consciousness that I also have of the precarious historical and political context that so many people who have walked this land have. And so this next poem, I don't actually have to give very much detail because I'm back in California. Usually when I travel around, I have to say the whole story about Angel Island, but I don't have to. Thank you. What I know I cannot say. We sailed to Angel Island, and for several hours, I did not think of you. When I couldn't stop myself finally from thinking of you, it was not really you, but the trees. Not really the trees, but their strange pods blooming for a while longer. A bloom more like the fringed fan at the tip of a peacock's tail than anything I'd call a flower. And so I was thinking about flowers and what we value in a flower, more than I was thinking of the island or its trees, and much more than I was thinking of you. Recursive language ties us together, linguists say. I am heading down this road. I am heading down this road despite the caution signs and the narrow shoulders. I am heading down the road, the curvy road, despite the caution signs and the narrow shoulders, because someone I fell in love with once lived around here. Right there. That is an example of recursive language. Every language, nearly every language in the world demands recursion. Few things bring us together more than our need to spell out our intentions, which helps explain the early 20th century Chinese prisoners who scratched poems into walls on Angel Island, and why a Polish detainee wrote his mother's name in 1922. I was here, they wanted to tell us. And by here, they meant the island, and they also meant the world. And by the island, they meant the world they knew, and they also meant the world they left, and the world they wanted to believe could be theirs, the world they knew required passwords. Think of Angel Island Immigration Station as purgatory, the guide explained. He told tales of paper fathers, picture brides, the fabrications of familiarity so many lives depended on. Inquiries demanded consistency despite the complications of interpretation. In English, one would ask, how many windows were in your house in the village? How many ducks did you keep? What was the shape of the birthmark on your father's left cheek? In Japanese, Cantonese, Danish, Punjabi, the other answered. Then it all had to come back to English. The ocean is wide and treacherous between one home and the other. There can be no turning back, no correction once what is said is said. Who can blame the Chinese detainees who carved poems deep into the wood on Angel Island's walls? Who can blame the Salvadoran who etched his village's name? Few things tie us together more than our need to dig up the right words to justify ourselves. Travelers and students, we sailed into the bay, disembarked on Angel Island. I didn't think about you, which is to say, the blue gum eucalyptus is considered a threat, though we brought it across oceans to help us. Desired first for its timber because it is quick growing and was expected to provide a practical fortune. And when it did not, enlisted as a windbreak, desired still because it is fast growing and practical, the blue gum has colonized the California coastal forests, squeezing out native plants, dominating the landscape, and increasing the danger of fire. I should hate the blue gum eucalyptus. But from the well of their longing, by which I mean to say from their pods, you know what I mean, I hope, their original homes. From the well of their longing, blooms explode like fireworks. I love them for this. Do you hear me? I absolve you. You are far too beautiful and singular to blame. Thank you. We got joy in the back, which I think we need. We need a lot of joy these days. The epigraph for this poem is not full of joy. A fifth of animals without backbones could be at risk of extinction, say scientists. BBC Nature News. Characteristics of life. Ask me if I speak for the snail, and I will tell you, I speak for the snail. I speak of underneathedness and the welcome of mosses, of life that springs up, little lives that pull back and wait for a moment. I speak for the damselfly, water skeet, mollusk, the caterpillar, the beetle, the spider, the ant. I speak from the time before spinelessness was frowned upon. Ask me if I speak for the moon jelly. I will tell you one thing today and another tomorrow, and I will be as consistent as anything alive on this earth. I move as the currents move, with the breezes. What part of your nature drives you? You, in your cubicle, ought to understand me. I filter and filter and filter all day. Ask me if I speak for the nautilus, and I will be silent as the nautilus shell on a shelf. I can be beautiful and useless, if that's all you know to ask of me. Ask me what I know of longing, and I will speak of distances between meadows of night-blooming flowers. I will speak the impossible hope of the firefly. You, with the candle burning and only one chair at your table, must understand such wordless desire. To say it is mindless is missing the point. And I'm going to close with one final poem. Thank you so much. It's such a delight to be here, Richard and Joyce, for this glorious event that you make happen every year. I'm so deeply grateful, and I'm so grateful to share the podium with so many poets that I love. This book is full of California poems. This was written on a trip to Tahoe at the very, very, very beginning of my pregnancy. And I'm thinking about it today because we're in this sort of moment that we are often in where we're trying to figure out how to move forward when it seems like there's just nothing but destruction and devastation and terror around us. So, I don't know. Maybe this will give you some ideas. Before the fetus proves viable, a stroll creekside in the high Sierra. It seems Everyone is silvered, dead, until we learn to see the living, beaked males and females clutching their 100,000 row, working muscle, fin, and scale against the great laws of the universe, current, gravity, obsolescence, and the bears preparing for their torpor, clawing the water for weeks, this rich feed better than any garbage bin, and these still living red ones who made it past all that, nuzzling toward a break in the current, everything about them moving, yet hardly moving forward at all.